Bien, estamos de vuelta ya en
So we're
recta.
back on the final part of our third day of Siemens Mineral Week. And to finish this interesting event of mining digitalization, we will talk about this topic in a panel. We will talk about the challenges of digitalization in the mining sector, its relationships in sustainability, and I would like to welcome Tania
Líder de
Galdames, leader of digital reportability of the Tailings Project, Vice President of Projects for Codelco. Thank you for being with us. Thank you, Sebastián. Mauricio Gomez, Digital Manager of Business Minerals, Chile, Peru, of Siemens. Thank you for being with us, Mauricio. Welcome. Diana Bassi is also with us, Regional Infrastructure Manager at BHP, Digital Transformation Leader. Thank you for joining us, Adriana. Welcome. Thank you for the invitation. And remotely, we also have Jorge Viñuela, Corporate Manager of Technology of Codelco. Thank you for being with us, Jorge. Thank you very much, Sebastián. Well, with Tania, Adriana, Mauricio, and Jorge, we will be talking about different topics that will allow us to round up all everything that we talked over this 2021 edition of Siemens Mineral Week. I would like to start with a specific experience of the BHP, specifically about the way of connecting these two main topics, digitalization and sustainability. How has it been, in that sense, the experience of BHP in the connection of these two issues? Well, what I can say is that there's been many agreements for renewable energy for Escondida and Spence in Chile, where digitalization has also played a very important role because we are implementing many safety regulations with new technologies based on implementing systems. Those are systems that allow us to review and be more efficient in the use of water or the use of electricity too.
En ese sentido, hay un vínculo
In
directo,
that sense,
Mauricio.
there's a really direct relationship between these two challenges on tackling sustainability and the benefits that the digitalization process delivers. Absolutely, Sebastian. We are seeing big problems in mining, low concentrations, increase of the use of energy because of the low concentration, restrictions on the water use. You can't think about a mining project without using seawater, and those different problems digitalization is using different kind of indicators, productivity, cost savings, more sustainable solutions. And in that sense, digitalization leverages a new process, a new era on mining. That process, Tanya, also means a couple of some barriers to break some certain paradigms. How are you working in Codelco? Specifically in the vice president, we are working on culture. We know that processes, that's fundamental. We change processes, and how we've seen the challenges of this digitalization will be driven by the work within the organizations, and we're focusing on that. And how will that culture change? It's a process, it takes time, it needs new leadership. Yes, we specifically are investing very strongly in what you just said. The leadership, we think it's the factor that will leverage these changes. We are looking for fresh leaderships, integrator that also have a view of the business that's full. And from our perspective, the development of projects, a view of the value chain. We have space for women also. Feminine leadership takes a fundamental role. Yes, of course. So how have you seen that process, Mauricio, from Siemens, that process of cultural change and learning from new ways of working to acquire new tools? From the point of view that you're asking, Sebastiana, what Tanya is saying, there's an aspect that's key, the co-creation process, the integrating into a customer, for instance, a player like Codelco in the creation project of digital solutions, which is it's very important because today there are paradigms in terms of the training, the trends that we managed lately in mining, and it's very important to break those paradigms to lose the fear at the moment of developing a solution. So co-creation is a very important element. And another aspect that Tanya said that has to do with professionals. We are seeing a change of paradigm in the incorporation of new professionals associated to IT technology and the conversion of professionals that currently work in mining, which, yes, of course, are parallel processes. I would like to go deeper in the case of Codelco, Jorge, and how it's happening at a corporate level, this digital transformation process.
Mira, para
Perfect. To simplify things, the idea on how we are leading with this digital transformation, we can focus on three main axles. Has to do with transversal technologies, how we call them, cybersecurity, communication networks, the technical architectures, function that need to be standardized in the communication networks. For instance, we are using LTE networks for our pit and monitor our trucks and the whole process of extraction. Another axis is, which is also parallel, has to do with digitalization of the processes. We're talking about automation in the plant and the mine. It's very important to work with sensors of these equipment, which will deliver a series of information that let us measure and control what's happening with the process. And from there, we can start having a second line that has to do with advanced analytics, how the history, how this information, everything that we capture with an analysis process, can we can optimize the process. We can seek where the moments are where the plant can produce more, where the concentration of the material can bring us more an improvement on the production. And the third axle was mentioned before by Tanya, has to do with what we call change management.
herramienta a nuestros
We give
colaboradores.
tools to our collaborators so that they can be part of this transformation. Without them and without their capability for adapting to this, it will be very hard to implement technologies and digitalization in the processes. So there's a very important key point there that has to do with what we call digital alphabetization. We are training a series of capabilities using training, we call them Codelco, where we are teaching all our employees concepts like analytics, like cybersecurity, among others, so that everyone's part of this transformation process. Jorge, and has it been very hard, the change process? It's not always easy to lead those changes. There can be natural resistance or fears. Well, yes, one would think that yes, there would be resistance, but once you involve and produce this integration
Y la
between the
gente
operation and the people that work with technology or that bring this new technology, you see immediately, given the benefits that this digitalization causes, that the operation and people get on board with this concept. I think that there's more fear in this process than what it really happens. And giving the tools, that's the key factor here, is to give the tools to the collaborators. What can you tell us from the experience of BHP? Well, we share a lot of the pillars that Christian was talking about. There's no doubt that the training of people to have these strategic alliances with companies from the innovative ecosystem is fundamental for to improve in digitalization, the culture, and to have a clear purpose. As, for instance, as the technology area within this industry and this and BHP. Well, it's a key factor because if we don't have this commitment from all the collaborators and the areas that depend on technology or that work allied with technology, we couldn't move forward this fast. Mauricio, it's interesting to see the perspective and wide view go outside of Chile, see what's happening in Peru. You can contribute from there. And the point of view that Siemens has seen these change processes, what's happening in the digitalization process in both countries. I could say that it's a common element. There's three big trends from the digitalization point of view. One has to do with integrated operation centers. We're seeing in the operations, bringing the operations to up urban centers. There's operation centers in the Titanium building. Codelco has done this in the northern area of the country and make available technologies that let us monitor critical assets and make specialists available, not only from Chile, from anywhere in the world in those operation centers. That's a very important trend. And the second trend is the construction of digital twins. We saw a presentation from Dr. Danfor associated to that, and the construction of the social twins will solve different issues that we can't solve with making available data. Sometimes you don't have convergence between training or solutions, and digital twins let us have an orientation to different scenarios, detection of faults, etc. And a third element has to do with the digital mind, to have a behavior and development in from the point or horizontal point of view since the conception of the project till the commissioning. I would say that those three elements we are seeing in Chile and Peru from the point of view of digitalization trends. And in which level are those development of these three segments in these two countries? How are we compared to other big mining nations? I would say that we have a huge opportunity from the point of view of development. We are in a world-class cluster, and even if with other markets we are a bit behind compared to other markets, chemistry or pharmaceutics, but we can feel very proud of what's happening in terms of Peru's digital mines development. One of the presentations of this Congress has to do with that. Condition monitoring, the pandemic helped to drive those technologies and digital twins also. We are seeing some kind of development both in Chile and Peru. Tanya, in that sense, in the what you are in charge of, which is the area of tailings within Codelco, which digital initiatives are being developed there? The tailings specifically manage the management where I work. We take every project, we lead every project of tailings of the corporation. We're in charge of transforming and widen all the tailing deposit to give continuity to the operations, specifically of sulfides and every division. And that's where we have a huge challenge because digitalization somehow comes to integrate today with all these changes that we are seeing in the mining industry. Today, we are working on all the value chain, seeking to somehow understand that digital comes to contribute to improve our results, to improve our productivity. And in the first stage, we are in charge of, since from design to the construction and final delivery to the divisions of an important asset, which is the tailings deposits. From that point of view, we have incorporated methodologies like BEAM and AWP, which we've integrated somehow to manage our projects. And of course, we have what our colleague was saying about how companies contribute to this, how our collaborators take charge of developing themselves. It's fundamental. The engineering companies, for instance, are working hand in hand with us in our models, our 3D models. Without going further, we have implemented and developed the 3D model and for the project of PRET, which is the thickened tailings project for the Talavera Dam, which will supply all the northern area. In that project, we already have our first working packages, which are the AWP from Advanced Work Packaging, and where we disaggregate somehow a project in very small pieces. And that will let us follow, along with this 3D model, all those wastes that can be produced, all those interferences that we can have to the construction of the project to, in the end, ensure the delivery in time and the cost that we expect. Tanya, and the previous presentation this morning, Fernando Alanis from Miñoles talked about mining as a sector that was a tractor because he said that somehow it generated or dragged other sectors or smaller companies that rent services. And you've seen that as you advance in digitalization in your sector because that you mentioned engineers. Yes, that's fundamental because yes, we have to be a tractor. We need to work together with because That change, that transformation of mining means that service companies, engineering companies, construction companies, our main partners in the vice presidents of projects, the vendors, they need to understand that they have to transform themselves, and our role is to incorporate them. As Jorge said, that the ecosystem is fundamental, and our corporation will continue improving and driving this. Jorge, I would like to talk about something that seems to be related to what Tanya was saying about how Codelco, in this case, works with other sectors from the cybersecurity standards point of view, that it's more and more important. How do you make this compatible with the need of the infrastructure in technology with the connection of this to the networks of the customers? Well, that's something that's very important and very current. We've seen the last couple of months a series of attacks that have been suffered by industries like pipelines, the meat industry in JBS or Acer was attacked. It was a series of viruses, ransomwares. And from this point of view, what Codelco is doing, we could separate it in multiple blocks. First, it's fundamental to educate and make people aware. And most of these attacks happen using social engineering and a malicious email, a link where they ask for some user and password, and we think that this is right, and we enter our credentials, and using them, the attackers start moving within our networks. We constantly do training courses and phishing campaigns to detect and educate our collaborators. That's fundamental. From there, that's where we need to start from. Second, even if we have security blocks in the IT world, which is what we have the internet access, emails, where we do uh, a deep protection from the access to the network to finally the equipment where we work, putting multiple elements in the middle to protect and secure the identity of the person that's connecting. Even the IoT and these control networks, we saw this in the previous presentation. This, the electrical SCADA, the networks that are behind the automation of the plants. We need to build new blocks, security blocks that let us isolate the construction and to ensure that the access to those networks is done on the connection of the equipment and the OT or the operators themselves, and not have access from anyone that reaches those networks. Because if they take control, that can happen. It can happen what happened in the pipelines that left for multiple days that without service. And so we need to define security blocks focused on the OT world. We started in 2020, and we hope to finish next year with a series of initiatives to control these networks.
Sí. Mauricio? Sí, Jorge plantea un tema muy significativo que tiene que ver.
Jorge talks about something very important that has to do with cybersecurity. We see in the industry, in players like Codelco or BHP, in some cases, certain restrictions with management of the data and how that data is secured. From that point of view, it's very important to talk about this IoT solutions and to have a cloud focus, which is something that's being developed in the industry, but also a premise focus, a local focus. So it's very important that technology providers manage both worlds, local and cloud, associated to the trends that this industry is having with the assets that they manage. And Adriana, I understand that you're back. She can see you on your screen. I would like to talk about something that Tanya mentioned that was very interesting, and how women can also are also entering the world of mining, and they see in this digitalization process that in that sense a entry door to how do you see this in BHP, this incorporating more women to the mining activity? Well, above everything, I would like to say that men and women have the same capabilities. I like to talk about Lawless, which was the first woman that programmed, that coded, and she's uh, recognized as the mother of computing. So women have a lot to contribute. There's great programmers. So we would add 50% more to the population uh, from these same capabilities to code, to program, to generate data. We are working on, as BHP, and on the visualization of women, and working on mentoring. We are in constant contact with the university, with schools, communities, because we need to increase the number of professionals, because there's a lot of work coming in the digital area, so we need to have trained people. Yes, of course, and there's a diversity of talent that's required in this transformation process. How do you see that process, Tanya, of incorporating women to mining in this environment? The truth is that I'm very glad to see this. It's very nice, not only for the transformation, but within the mining industry. For sometime we've been incorporating a given room to, we see women on the moving the equipment, and we couldn't go into the mines before. Well, today we are part of these processes, and this transformation process and cultural changes give room to try new things, and that that causes a room for, as Adriana said, capabilities are the same. We have different ways, maybe, of relating this, and that enriches these processes. And incorporating women definitely to this digital transformation processes will make this change different and probably even closer and beneficial for all the industry too. Well, there's efforts from the public sector and private sector to in line with that. Mauricio, before we finish, as a final thought, maybe, what would you say that it's the main success factor for the digitalization process in the mining industry? Well, we talked about the co-creation aspects associated to cybersecurity, people, multidisciplinary teams. The participation of women is a huge opportunity for this market to incorporate more women. And the strategic objectives, as Codelco and BHP have, they shouldn't be isolated efforts. They need to be transversal throughout the organization. Those are elements that will help this process in the industry. Tanya, yes, also we found a success factor that's very important, and I'd like to share. Somehow, the cultural change within the transformation, at least for us in the vice presidency of projects, has been driven by the incorporation of agile methodology that let us take the problem from a very small room. We were used to the big problems, big solutions, and that made this machine in Codelco also took time. And today we're working from smaller processes, from looking for a solution and then escalate it to the different projects, even transfer it within our organization to eliminate silos is basic for us. And that's been a very important success factor, to share good practices, to develop from the working teams looking for integrator leadership, and to escalate that and share it into other organizations within the working areas also, and well, the ecosystem that we've insisted a lot on. It has to do with a corporate culture in the end. Well, Jorge, the same question, but from your area specifically, how do you see those success factors to move forward in these processes? Well, I think that the success factors are basically given by, as I said in the beginning, the change management, the digital alphabetization, to include our collaborators in this digitalization train. It's basic. We think that there's a lot of processes that are happening right now in different areas that can be replicated in divisions. We have seven different divisions, different realities. But what we are trying to do is to good practices, take them, good practices of the digital transformation, to take them to the other divisions. That's very a key factor in standardization. And Adriana, on your side, your experience in BHP, how do you see those success factors for processes that are complex as this? They're very challenging. Yes, well, I'm very proud because BHP is working with a digital factory which belongs to the company. So we are taking this factory and aligning it to different actors within the company itself, whether in operations with people from technology, HR. And as Tanya said, we're co-creating this, delivering from minimal viable products, and we are replicating them at a big scale. And also has to do with incorporating people in this digital transformation, the processes, and above all, to have the goals that come from the strategy of the company very clear for the whole company, that have permeated to each one of the collaborators that work with us from BHP and the collaborator companies. That's been key also. Well, and it's interesting to see how things, factors, some factors, common factors repeat on from your perspective from BHP, Codelco, and Siemens. Mauricio, Tania, Adriana, Jorge, thank you very much for joining us in this closing panel in Siemens Minerals Week. Thank you, the four of you. We are reaching the end of our event. We've had a lot of questions over the different communication channels, our website, and also our social media. Those questions will be answered directly. You won't be left without an answer, and we will contact you to send you the information. And we want to remind you, all the presentations that you've seen in these 3 days of Siemens Mineral Week are available in our website in mineralsweek.cl. We want to thank everyone that joined us during these 3 days of this 2021 edition to talk about digitalization and the mining industry, and with all the benefits and challenges. And of course, all of you that joined us from your homes, all the comments and questions that allowed us to feed this conversation. We finished Siemens Minerals Week 2021. Thank you for joining us. Have a good day.